Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Hey, Matt, thanks for joining me this morning. Do you want to give us an intro on your background?
Sure. So Matt Fantazier, I lead our growth and performance team for our baby and body care categories at J&J. Been with J&J for over 16 years, a lot of different roles. Actually started in finance, worked in brand, worked in digital, kind of bounced back and forth. But right now, we'll talk about what my team does in a minute here, but part of a lot of our digital transformation and media and also e-com, things like that.
Great. So I'm Lynette, Kaylor. I probably should introduce myself first. I work for FuboTV. I head up our sales team there. So I'm really excited to be here. I've only been there for about almost 3 months now, so still a little bit new. But anyway, we wanted to talk today. We've noticed a trend on the sell side of more brands taking things in-house. So they're more active participants in their media plans versus a agency coming and saying, here it is, sign off on it. Are you good to go? You're taking more active role in this, and you've been a big part of that. So can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've historically been set up to buy media like it's 1960, and we create a big idea, we put it out there, we see what happens 12 months later. With much more data, more platforms, more ability to optimize as we learn, it's been important for us to be more set up to take more of that active role that you talk about. It's been a transition from more of a project management approach of moving things through the system, making sure things are launching, to, making sure, who knows our brands better than we do, making sure that we have more of that strategy and insight coming in-house, because it's more than just media that you can influence. We can influence our content strategy. We can influence our product pipeline with insights, what's working, what's not. So really creating that ecosystem has been a huge part of what we've been doing. And it's not bringing all of media in-house necessarily or anything like that. That's not what we're doing. But more of that strategy and analytics has been really what we've been focused on.
So how is your team organized?
Yeah, the way we talk about it is really across acquisition and engagement. So on the acquisition side, that's really much more of your media, our paid search, our paid social, TV, you name it, really getting consumers into our brand, focused on those sorts of things. On the other side is really what's been new, or what we've been building is more of that engagement side. How do we create great brand experiences for consumers? And that goes across our digital shelf. When people go to Amazon and look to buy, our websites, CRM, social, influencer, all the touch points that we know are critical. And then really bringing all this together. Some of this feels like a no-brainer, but making sure the person who is leading our paid search team can talk to the person who's leading our website to make sure that if we need to update something from SEO perspective, we can actually do it. Historically, that's been handoffs and it gets lost in translation. It's like 5% of an ABM side hustle to worry about the website. Nothing happens for years until there's like a rebrand or something. But now we have people who are literally talking about this every day. Hey, we're seeing this term trend. We're not ranking for it. Make sure we update our content, and then also can bring that insight elsewhere. So really building capabilities within those areas has been something we've been really building over the last 2 years.
Great. So I want to dive in because CPGs have traditionally kind of struggled in the first party data space. So I'm interested to understand what that looks like for you guys.
Yeah, it's a huge struggle for us. And we haven't necessarily figured it out. We've made a lot of progress there. But again, I don't think we've had the intentional effort that's been needed. It's been, the heroic work of a few that have built our first party data where we are today. And it's been a huge amount of progress that we've been able to drive. The problem is it's not sustainable and it doesn't get embedded into what we're doing as a business. It needs to be not, we have this expert over here who's kind of harping on everyone to worry about email sign up or whatever the case may be, tagging. But really, how do we embed that as a core, tenet of understanding who our consumers are so we can better serve them? So by setting up these teams, it creates a much more intentional approach towards, like, it's someone's job to manage that. On my team, we also have an audience manager that sits in between those engagement and acquisition teams to help play that translation role. We're building an audience, we're building a first party database, we're segmenting it. that person can help make sure it's getting pulled through on the media side then, and we can use that, create lookalikes, whatever the case may be, off of that data that we're now creating.
So are you guys actually, are you relying on basically your clients to sign up with an email and tell you what they're buying? Because it's Target that has your data, not or
Sure
Walmart
do.
or whomever.
Yeah, you have to have a value exchange. I think it's going to depend on the brand and what we can offer. So a brand like Neutrogena is a great example. We have a Skin 360 platform where it literally scans your face and gives you product recommendations. That's an unbelievable value exchange for a consumer. You're going to be willing to, I'll give you my email so I can find the right product, knowing facial care is a confusing category, it's expensive, and you want to look good, right? But it's a lot harder to get someone to sign up to give me their data for, call it like Imodium. Not something you want to talk about, maybe. That's one of our brands. It's important for us to know who those consumers are too. So it's going to vary depending on the brand, how we can address them, be it maybe from a portfolio perspective or from a more, we have a service we can offer them. Allergy is another good example where you're managing that. We can offer different technologies to track pollen count and allergy levels. That's a good value exchange, but it's going to vary.
Yep, I agree. So how do the retail media networks, how are they playing into your strategy? Because they're popping up everywhere. I think it's a smart idea. I know it's early stages, but I think they're headed somewhere because of the data.
Yeah, it's huge. I think it's the confluence of a couple factors that's been pretty well covered, so won't belabor it. But I think the deprecation of third-party data is a huge piece of it. But the rise of e-com, these retailers care a lot more than they did 4 years ago about their online business, and that's a way to drive conversion on their online business. And then so consumers are there as well, and they have rich data, to your point. Target can tell me that somebody bought newborn diapers. I can then target them with Johnson's baby shampoo advertising because of that, or they signed up for registry, or whatever the case may be. You can learn a lot about somebody based upon their purchases, and they have it in a way that I just don't. I'm a CPG. We light prayer candles and hope that people buy our products. They literally know everything that you're doing through, their loyalty programs, Red Card, depending on the retailer.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. So switching gears a bit, as your strategy has developed, we're seeing on our side a trend of linear dollars moving into the streaming space. Is that something that you're thinking about? How are you deciding? What goes into your decision making there?
Yeah, it's a combination of factors. I think at its core, we're going to think about the consumer. Obviously, what are they doing? Has their behavior moved? Because you also want to fish where the fish are. But as consumers have dramatically moved into streaming platforms, that's an area where there's a ton of attention. So we have to think about it there. The other piece of the equation is going to be capabilities and scale. And those capabilities have really accelerated in a big way over the last couple of years as well. As the scale's been there, the dollars have followed. So it's made sense for different platforms to invest in different ways, from a data measurement, different types of ad units they're able to run, which can be really exciting, and a better consumer experience oftentimes. So that's something that we're seeing the dollars move, but it follows the trend as, over the last 10 years, dollars have moved into social. We've moved into streaming audio or retail media because that's where the attention is. But I think there's a lot to be excited about from a targeting perspective, especially within the connected streaming TV space.
Yeah, I agree. Audience is a big deal to us. But, sorry. With that, we were talking about earlier, you and I were talking about how the macro economy is starting to really affect. We've seen a ton of layoffs in our industry, especially. But advertising is not going away. So what is your thought, if as budgets maybe tighten in the new year?
Yeah, the economy is not at its hottest right now. That's pretty clear. But at the end of the day, people still need to buy stuff. So you don't want to totally walk away from it. I think it's how you connect with the consumer. What they need is going to change. So I expect to see a lot more focus on content, a lot more focus on helping people find the right products for them, knowing that they still need to buy products, but maybe they're going to be more judicious with their disposable income or with those brand dollars that they spend every week or every month. So we need to think about how we're connecting with them, the messages we're delivering, the quality of the content we're producing, because yes, there's a rocky financial outlook ahead of us, but it's not going to go to zero by any stretch.
Right.
So how do you maximize that whatever percentage is left to make it work as hard as possible? And I think for marketers, as was mentioned in the start here, the onus is on us to really show that value. I mean, measurement's going to become that much more important. How we're driving outcomes, celebrating launches is not good enough.
Right.
We can't just be excited and pat ourselves on the back that we did cool stuff. That doesn't matter if it doesn't sell stuff. You can get away with that when everyone's buying everything you put in front of them. But when you're more demand constrained, you have to drive outcomes. So focus on measurement, focus on what's our jobs to be done. Balancing what we do from a conversion perspective is going to be critical. But at the same time, you can't walk away from other aspects of your media mix. Equity matters. People feeling good about your brand matters. So that's the one red flag and caution I would raise is you can't prohibitively move into conversion either, because eventually you become irrelevant. Right. We see this on all the time with brands always. Yes, you're doing well now, but you still have to nurture that part of your business.
Yeah. We have this conversation actually internally all the time about how much should we have on to your point, the conversion side, and how much do we need to just get our brand out there so people know who we are. Yeah. But on the measurement side of things, that's becoming a pretty convoluted space, especially like in the streaming space. We're talking to a bunch of different providers now, because what maybe worked previously in linear doesn't necessarily work in streaming and social and all the things. So how are you managing KPIs? How are you thinking about measurement, and how does that play into your strategy?
Talk a lot about measurement. It's certainly gotten more challenging, but at the same time, there's more data than we've ever had at the same time. So I think you can't look at it as a silver bullet. And I don't know if I'm, qualifier. I don't represent the full J&J perspective, so maybe this is heresy, but I think you have to look at a lot. There's not a KPI. Right. I think you have to look at what is available, what are your business objectives, and not let myopic thinking get in the way of good marketing. If something makes sense and you can measure your outcomes in a way that is reliable and makes sense, that's good. It's ideal if we can get everything standardized and we can look at it on a level playing field. And we use MTA and mix analysis to level out some of those elements, but that's modeled and imperfect, of course. That's a data point, but we looking at what's available and how do you create sort of this data tapestry to really create an informed perspective of performance, your brand, how people are reacting to what you're putting into the marketplace is super important.
Yeah. So we didn't actually talk about this, so I'm going to throw
Here we go.
Yeah, I know. How are you thinking about clean rooms? Because this keeps coming up kind of everywhere, and I think from a brand perspective, it actually offers some pretty unique value props as far as like creating unique second-party data and also on the measurement side of things. How are you guys thinking about that? Are you using a clean room? Is it in the future?
It's definitely something we've been exploring, and you see it with retailers often. They have an enormous amount of data, and that's part of the value exchange. It's a much more obviously nascent part of the ecosystem right now. It's being developed. There's huge potential there, though, where you can bring together data sets to better understand behavior. There's huge potential there for sure. It's been a limitation, though, in terms of what we've been able to do.
Agreed. But
I think we're getting to a bit of a prisoner's dilemma situation where as more people open up and look to it as an asset, their data truly is an asset and not something they're trying to hold back, I think the floodgates will probably open, because some people are going to, different owners of data will be left out in the cold. It's like, why would I work with someone who's not going to share it?
Right. Especially in the clean room space, because it's all anonymized, right, and you can pull pretty unique insights out of that. I know Disney and others that's a big. So are you working with any large like content providers in that way yet? I don't know if you can say.
Not sure I can say,
Yeah.
But I would just say it's very early in a lot of ways for us. I think us, like everyone in the industry, is trying to figure out how to crack it. Data is so important, and there's so much of it, and how we can use it more efficiently is going to be a huge focus for us going forward. It has been a huge focus for us over the last number of years. But I would say it's still early days.
How concerned are you about the privacy regulations around data? Because I mean, on our side, well, my background's in data, and so I've been very familiar with how CCPA has played out, GDPR, all these things. And so if we keep tightening, how do you think that affects or doesn't affect us?
I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. It creates challenges, but I also think it forces us to do a better job of marketing, forces us to create better content, to be more relevant, to create experiences consumers want to opt into versus just slamming them with, like, following people around and slamming them with a message can be effective, bless you. But it's kind of lazy in a lot of ways. I think it's a higher order sort of goal for us to create things that people want, that are creating utility, like, the Skin 360 scanner I talked about, that people want to use that because it's good and it's helpful and it creates value for them, versus I know exactly who this person is and what they bought, 3 months ago. So they're probably back in the purchase cycle. Like, yeah, that works, but I think it creates the tension that's necessary to elevate what we do as an industry. So I actually don't think it's the worst thing in the world. I also don't sell direct, so I'm less concerned about it. So it hurts me less than a direct seller, but there's obviously implications from a measurement standpoint, from a targeting standpoint. We use a lot of third-party data to target our media. It's very effective. Like I said, it's not bad, but it changing, maybe not all 100% going away, but changing how we approach it just forces us to get creative.
Yep. And I think it also enforces the need to have your own first party data strategy, because
100%.
You need to own that relationship between you and your customer.
Yeah, it forces the right behaviors, I would say. So understanding who your consumer is, how you can better serve them, that's not a bad thing for a brand to have to do. And it's good ultimately for the brand and the consumer, I would say.
So I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, what are you thinking about Netflix and the new advertising? And
it's pretty expensive from what I understand.
Yeah. Is that part of your strategy yet?
Not yet. It's expensive from what I don't have all the details on it. So it seems like it's expensive. But I think the key is, does it work? So expensive actually isn't a bad thing if it's effective. So
I love what you say there. That's what we preach that every day.
And as long as I can measure that, and that's, I think, part of the challenge as well from, is our ability to measure then that effectiveness. Does it work? Does it move the needle? CPMs or CPCs are relative to their effectiveness, and it can make sense. You can buy cheap inventory, you can buy expensive inventory. If nobody buys it, it doesn't matter. You could have the most efficient buy possible, but nobody bought anything, it was worth nothing. You literally lit cash on fire at that point. So it's that balancing act we always think about of effectiveness and efficiency. Maybe it's warranted, maybe it's justified. I mean, heck, if I could triple my effectiveness or whatever, would I be willing to pay a $60 CPM? Maybe.
Yeah.
But I don't know yet. So we'll let the first movers find that out for us.
Yeah, we'll find out, no doubt. I'm sure that'll be top of mind. That's kind of all I've had. Anything else you want to touch on before we hand this back over?
I think we covered a lot of ground.
I think we did. Yeah. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, with the mic. Mike, coming, please. Please say your name and where you're from before you ask a question.
Hi there.
Hi. Hello. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Kristen with Betches Media. You talked a lot about linear and streaming TV. Just would love to learn a little bit more about your media mix. You talked about caring a lot about content and finding consumers where they are. So just thinking about the millennial generation and millennial parents, social media definitely has a heavy influence there. So curious if you're tapping into any strategy there, branded content.
Yeah, we absolutely are. And it depends on the brand. So, I mean, we have a huge portfolio of brands. So you're going to have different mix, big, small targets, beauty, OTC, pretty different, pretty huge range. So there's absolutely a range there, but it's what I said earlier. It's where their attention is. So people spend objectively a ton of time on social media, and they spend a lot of time with content. We've absolutely invested in branded content. I 2 jobs ago led our marketing team on our baby franchise, and this is during 2020, 2021. What mattered to parents during 2020 was not shampoo. It was, can my partner go to the delivery room with me when I'm having a baby? So we worked with Parents Magazine to develop, and Meredith, to develop content around that, to say, hey, here's what you need to know. Here's the questions to have for your doctor, all those sorts of things. And then also they cared about how to talk to your kids about racism. These are heavy topics that our consumer cared a lot about. And we invested in content partnership with Scary Mommy and the Dad to create content on how to talk to young children about these types of topics. That's what mattered to parents in 2020. So that's what we invested in. What matters to them in 2023 across all these different categories is going to vary. But I would say, to the extent you can talk about something you have a right to talk about, we're a baby brand, so we could talk about these things. And you can do it to create a relevant, connection with your audience. It's a good thing. And I always think about, is it something that someone would want to read? Or am I just putting an ad out there that shows up on a different platform? It's a higher bar with content. It has to be something someone would want to read. And then as an afterthought, be like, oh, it's sponsored. That's the bar. And you don't always clear it, but ideally you do. But it's a great way to connect with consumers, especially in a noisy media environment where you're getting hit with literally thousands of messages every day. The ability to create that sort of connection on a thing that matters and breaks through that noise is incredibly powerful.
Matt, to your point you made about changing your messaging to be in line with the times. You see a lot of brands doing that. Have you found that the way you have changed your voice, the way you cast broadcast, the way you cast voices for your audio advertising, that will continue on as part of the brand DNA no matter what?
Yeah, I mean, I think you want to have people see themselves in your advertising. You want them to hear themselves in your advertising. So to the extent you can show up authentically in a way that resonates, that connects, that this is for me, I don't think that's ever going to go away. I don't think it ever didn't exist. I think we just pay a lot more attention to it now.
Hold it to the forefront.
Yeah.
And that's good. You see a lot of brands doing that. Any more questions for the team? Oh, hold on. Oh, since I'm right here. Go ahead, Bobby.
Hey, curious on your overall approach, like moving into 2023, just, with your lines of business and Johnson & Johnson as a whole, with the, recession looming coming up in the next couple of years, like not targeting, but dealing with big box chains, pharmacies and stuff, with the consumers looking at the lower price points of like CVS's option or Costco's option, or like, what is like the overall plan, or just Johnson & Johnson's stance on like dealing with that, them taking like a lower option, the consumer?
Yeah, that's always something we have to contend with. I think that's on us to create value, though. Like, we have to justify our value. So be it through helping them find the right product for them, giving them confidence in the quality of our products. I mean, it spans the range of topics that we focus on, but ensuring we're putting out the highest quality, best performing products that we can is job one. Making sure that we're helping consumers find the right products, being helpful, being relevant, hugely important. And then having options to help, considering we have, there's economic reality that is in front of us. So thinking about opening price points, how do we, have a range of solutions across a range of different lines and products and brands to meet everyone's different needs, knowing, yes, there will be some shifting in purchasing over the next, near-term time horizon. But do we have the portfolio? Do we have the messaging? Do we have the value in place to weather that? And that's something we spend an awful lot of time thinking about.
Sure.
Hi, I'm Andrew. I believe I'm in your seat. So going back a little bit, I think it's amazing that you leaned into a conversation like how to talk to your kids about racism, which is obviously sensitive. Given that level of risk tolerance, how do you think about brand safety versus brand suitability? And what do you ask of your partners, whether on the vendor, publisher, platform tech, in order to help kind of navigate that balance?
Yeah, you take a risk when you do that sort of thing. And I think you have to make sure you're true to who your brand is and your values. And then there are moments where you have to live into those values. And that's a call I'll make every day is, hey, is this authentic and true to who we are, who we say we are as an organization, our employees, our partners, and then, holding our partners accountable. So when we create content like that, do we have diversity in the team that is creating that content? Or is it a bunch of people that look like me doing that? That's not good. So are we authentically creating that with authentic voices? I think is a huge, to make sure you're not doing something that's tone deaf, that's not solving a problem. Are we just throwing money but not actually living what we're doing? So you have to really look in the mirror and make sure top to bottom, if you're taking a stance on something, that you're living it and that it's true and you're not doing it for marketing, you're doing it because it's right. And that's part of being a responsible brand and being a brand that's relevant to consumers. But you have to balance that. So like, how far do you want to take it? What are the and you have to be honest about that and be honest up front, have the conversation, have the tough conversation, but explain why it's important. And for us, it wasn't super controversial. It was the right thing to do, but we had to do the hard work up front to make sure we're defining why we want to do it, what we want to do, what are our objectives, why do we have a right to do this, how do we want to execute it. So it's an awful lot of work to make sure you do it in the right way. But at the end of the day, it's the work I'm most proud of, and it's not driving a ton of direct sales or anything, but it's making our brands hopefully make the world somewhat better, which is a lofty expectation for shampoo, but I think we achieved that.
Last question from Wendy.
Hi, Matt. Thanks for the talk today. Something that I really resonated with, talking about going back to content and really building that authenticity. We're seeing a lot of brands, especially in the CPG space, really moving towards creators, content creators. And I'm talking specifically with the boom in creator economy. Mm-hmm. I want to know how you think about, with your media mix, balancing that with publisher content, because we know that in the past, talking about parents, talking about, the Condé Nast of the world, the Merediths of the world, that's really been, I would say, the meat and potatoes of a lot of CPG brands' content strategy. So with the rise of TikTok creators, with millennial parents, how are you specifically thinking about potentially bringing that into your marketing mix? And how do you really balance between the two, between the large publisher voices and then the smaller creator voices?
Yeah, it's in our mix.
Yeah.
And I would say it's an and. It's not an or. We work with publishers. That's an important part of our mix because consumers look to that content for something different. And we work with creators because people are reading both. People are engaging with creators on TikTok or Pinterest or wherever, and they're engaging with larger publishers as well. So it's not an or. What we think about from a creator standpoint, and what my team really focuses on, is that we are, one, creating authentic relationships with these people and giving them the ability to use their voice to have authentic voices, answer authentic questions, essentially. I'm not chasing reach with influencers. We put paid behind it. I want better content. I want resonant content that maybe comes from a different point of view, from someone that looks different, especially in beauty. So, across our beauty portfolio, it's really important for us to work with different creators that have different pigmentation, that have different hair types, that are older, younger, male, female, you name it. There's a million dimensions that make you and everyone unique. So our ability to tap into that is really powerful from a creator standpoint. And we've seen a lot of success in that. And I think, TikTok's really opened up the floodgates in a lot of this. You're seeing a lot of brands kind of get wise to it, but there's a how element of how you bring that to life. And you don't want to, dictate how somebody creates content or how they use their voice, or else is what I would say. Don't use an influencer. There's cheaper ways to produce content, but how do you tap into someone who's truly talented and then create a two-way relationship with them where we can offer something back to them in return? How do we offer them access to our scientists? How do we provide funding for their production? Do we fly them to our labs to see how, depending on, the topic or that's just some us examples. But I always like to think of a brand as an ability to be a fairy godmother to a creator, because that's what we have money. So like that's an advantage that we can offer in return, is that access, that funding, that production to help them create even better content. And in turn, they're going to create better content for us.